Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Top Flight Pod. You know what it is. You know what we're here to do. We're back on screen today. Beautiful Austin, Texas. Sunday night game. So it threw everything off whack. Stream pod for this week. Had to call in my G Scott, the writer of the What You Need to Knows, the match preview going into an Austin FC match day. Scott, welcome to the show, mate. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. The sun's always a little bit brighter and the air's always a little bit fresher after a win. So it was nice to end the weekend on a high note.
Definitely made. And although it is the end of the regular season at home, Austin FC fans can, kind of rest easy, at least for these couple of days, knowing that they officially clinched sixth seed in the West, knowing that they officially have playoff soccer for sure. So, hey, second time in this short history for this team, for this club. And I think it's definitely something to talk about here tonight on the pod. I want to send a shout out to all the Patreon and all the Discord members, and also if you're looking for a watch party for this weekend for the game against San Jose, last match day of the regular season, you can go ahead and check out what's going on at Hop Squad with Los Verdes. There will be a lot of stuff going on there. My G Scott there with the T-shirt. There's going to be a lot going on. $5 beers, if I'm not mistaken. But Scott, anything that you want to add on to this watch party madness going on for the last match day?
No, and just because there's nothing really in it for Austin since we've finished sixth already and clinched it. That doesn't mean that there's not a lot of other interesting matches out in the West, especially when it comes to who Austin's going to play in the first round, and also who's going to make the bottom end of the playoffs in the playing
100%.
game. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Hop Squad's a great venue. They're very thankful to have them for the Austin soccer scene.
100%. So make sure to check out the Hop Squad area if you're looking for a watch party. It's going to be a lot of fun. La Murga is going to be there, so it's going to be a different vibe, different energy than maybe you've had in recent watch parties. But this is going to be different. So check it out, and we'll most likely see you out there. But on that note, Scott, I want to talk about this game that happened on Sunday, 3-0 on Sunday night games, if I'm not mistaken, made obviously the Austin against LAFC W at Q2 Stadium. Owen Wolff rising to the occasion, of course, scoring the winning goal off of a beautiful, beautiful Zan Kolmanic assist. Now, before we get into the details, getting into all the main topics, I want to ask you, mate, about your general thoughts. Kind of, how did you see this game? Was it kind of one of your favorites? Was it one of your least favorites? I'm curious. How did you see this one?
It is not a game I would show someone if I was trying to get them into watching MLS or Austin. It was a little just kind of like cagey. Not, I don't want to say it's boring, but it's one of those games where both teams just kind of don't have enough attacking verve to really generate anything because of just international break and everybody who is missing. That's not a slight on the players who are there. It's just a fact of, if you look at the game and you look at the stats, like, this is what happened. It also kind of seemed like a game that both teams would have been okay with taking a point from. When you look at playoff positioning and clinching playoffs, I'm really glad to see Austin win a game like this because I think it's important. Just in the same way that the Open Cup matches where they went on the road as an underdog and won goes to show what this team can do. I hope it gives them a lot of confidence that if they can keep the game close, they can come up with the goal at the end. And I'd like seeing the overall defensive structure of the three at the back, which is something we'll talk about a little bit more later. But I really like how that looks for this team.
Now, just real quick, some things to throw out there. Now, this win versus LAFC did end their game-winning streak. It was quite the game-winning streak for LAFC. Now, this also ended LAFC's clean sheet streak. It was 3 games where they had not seen a goal. So that's something there for the Austin FC. I wouldn't say attack because it came from a set piece from a corner kick, but Brad Stuber post-match said that everybody knew what they had to do and they knew that they could be dangerous from set pieces. So got to give them credit there. Now, just like I mentioned, they're 3-0 in Sunday Night Soccer. And Austin sets a new club record for the most clean sheets in an MLS season. That's 9 for them. So big ups to this group, of course, beating the record of 8 in 2022 and also 2024. And also, like I mentioned earlier, Scott, with this game, this W, it locks in the 6th seed in the West, and they avoid the wild card game. So I want to talk a little bit about Owen Wolff, right? This is a guy that is probably the best player for Austin FC this season. I don't know if you'd agree with that. Maybe some folks would maybe want to go with a bigger name or whatnot. It's definitely a little bit of a debate. But Owen Wolff has been lights out for Austin FC this year. I mean, he's a kid that, like I said, he's a kid. You know what I mean? This is a guy that's very young. By no means should he be putting these kind of performances for Austin FC. And as we talk about this game, mate, I just want to get your thoughts on Owen Wolff. He had the goal, the 1-0 that sealed the 3 points for Austin FC. And there wasn't that many opportunities to kind of go off of in this game, but you just have to talk about Owen Wolff. And of course, his finish at the back post that secured all these things for Austin FC against LAFC. How did you see Owen Wolff and, of course, his goal?
I thought it was a really great goal, and I think one of the things I've been most pleasantly surprised about with him is his strength in the air. This isn't the first time we've seen him score a goal in the air on the back post. We've seen him just absolutely body guys and outmuscle them, which is not something you expect from a player as young as he is, especially as we've watched him grow. You know, he was the club's first homegrown contract. There was a lot of calls about nepotism at the time. It's because his dad was the coach. And I hope everybody sees now that those homegrown contracts are investments for what your club is going to be centered around in 3 years, if assuming those players develop. I think I'm not sure he's the best player on the team, but I think he's probably been the most indispensable this year because he provides things that we don't have otherwise. There's no other kind of attacking mid who makes the runs he does and the passes he does and can finish. And you see that not just in, the eye test of watching him, but you also see it in the stats when you look at his goals and assist contributions. And really, if you're comparing him to other players in MLS, you're comparing him to a lot of guys who are kind of like all-star level guys, to be honest. I mean, I think the most apt comparison for him is Diego Luna, who everybody would be ecstatic to get and who's had a great season at RSL and for the men's national team. And that's really kind of like the trajectory that Owen's on right now.
Definitely, mate. Now, some things, some quick stats on Owen Wolff. He has 7 assists and 6 goals so far in 2025 for Austin FC. He has an average rating of 7.2. That's off of FootMob. 33 appearances this season, this year, 2025. 30 starts to go with that. And one thing that we can't, kind of just skip over as we're talking about Owen Wolff right now. This is his third year in a row that he's made the list of best under 22s or best 22s under 22. He's fourth best this year just in great company with Obed Vargas, Alex Freeman, David Martinez from LAFC. But I think something really has to be said about the huge jumps that he had from 24 to 25, because in 2023 he was 18th. 2024 they had him at 17th, and now this year, Scott, 2025, you see him up there in the fourth spot. So to me, it was not that Owen Wolff looks for these kind of moments. This is a guy that kind of just focuses on his game. I don't think that he had I don't think Owen Wolff put anything more into this game that he's had into other games because of the list that came out right before this match. I think Owen Wolff just rises to these kind of moments. But this just goes to show people who Owen Wolff is, what he's done this year, what he's done this season. And the scariest thing about it, good for Austin FC fans, is what this guy is going to turn into. Now, there was conversations about some European teams being on the lookout for Owen. Maybe he was on the radar for multiple teams. And of course, the U.S. market is so hot right now when it comes to getting young talent on the cheap and then trying to develop them and then, sell them. Right. So Owen Wolff it's going to be difficult to keep him in Austin, but it's good to know that he's an Austin player right now. And the way that he's going into these playoffs, I mean, he's looking like a dangerous guy for Austin FC, either on the wing or centrally, wherever they put this guy. Coach Nico has a baller in Owen Wolff. But on the U22 list, mate, I mean, how did you see that? What did you think about it? What was your first thought when you saw Owen's name so high up?
My first thought is I think that's about where I'd put him. I think especially considering his ages, output, and the other names on that list. You mentioned Obed Vargas being first. That's somebody who's getting mentioned for top tier clubs or the top leagues of Europe, and Liga MX squads seem to be wanting him immediately. That's really kind of where he is. I think for a lot of us kind of who saw this coming a little bit, or at least like thought that Owen was going to have kind of the breakout year that he has, You could see it even preseason, just the way that he was able to influence the game and create chances, and that's the thing that everybody needs and wants. You need a player like Owen Wolff in your team who not only can play as a 10, as a true attacking mid, but like you said, like you can have him as a winger who tucks inside, like Austin's been using him. Like he's versatile in the sense that you can play him anywhere and he can still bring those same qualities. So I think fourth is probably pretty reasonable, especially since
Mm.
he's technically a little young for the list, I think, compared to like some of the other players around him. And, it really goes to show that like even in MLS and in the US, like we can develop these players. We can take them from, 16, 17 into being 2021 and turn them into good players who are wanted by other leagues. And also, that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to be a league that develops players that other leagues want to buy. Like that is how a lot of leagues survive. It's how a lot of teams survive. Like being able to develop homegrown talent is ultimately what is going to make this league successful, and
Mm.
it's going to be what makes Austin successful as a club. Like if you look at the other top MLS teams, the ones that are there every year, you look at the Seattles and the Vancouvers, like though, and even Philadelphia, who just won Supporter Shield this year, like those are clubs with good academies who churn out good players every year that they just plug into the roster and just can play. And that's what you need in MLS to be able to win.
Well, hopefully Austin FC and a league like MLS can hold on to a player like Owen Wolff, but he's one of those guys that you just know is going to be one of the big sales that this club has ever had, and we'll see just how the way things play out. I want to talk a little bit about his goal, right? Because it was what secured the win, what secured these very important 3 points, and not so much on the point aspect. It was kind of more on the morale. To me, this win was kind of just a big energy boost for the atmosphere, for the fan base, for even the way that players carried themselves at Q2 Stadium after being unsuccessful in the Cup final at home, being unsuccessful in the game against St. Louis at home. It's just those were just just punches after punch after punch to just so many just so many guts out there, right? And with this game that came around the corner, it was against a tough LAFC side of, but without Son, without Buanga, maybe some folks thought that, hey, there was a lifeline there, there was an opportunity, right? But it was still an interesting LAFC side, if I must say. I thought that they presented themselves well. No team wanted to commit any kind of mistake, but on the goal, for me, because of how I described the match, it seemed like Austin was just waiting for one opportunity, Scott. To me, it seemed like they were just kind of hoping that they got some kind of dangerous set piece. Hopefully, they got a corner kick, right? And they would put in some kind of in swinger. That's exactly what we saw from Jan. So just kind of give me your thoughts on the goal that Owen Wolff scored, because you kind of mentioned, how good he has been in kind of the air. But any other thoughts that you had on Owen's goal?
This goal is why I hate short corners, because you are actively giving up a chance when you have players of the quality of Owen Wolff on the other side of the corner if you want to kick an in swinger, or Kolmanic on the other side to kick it an in swinger, who can put a lot of pressure on defenses. Like you look at where they put the ball, like those defenders are in a really tough spot. One, Austin has a lot of big guys who can win headers in the box. We also have Owen who can win headers in the box, and we really call him a big guy. It forces a lot. It forces the defense to make plays, and especially in MLS, you want to make the defense make plays all the time. And even if you don't always like win the first header, you don't have to win the first header. You just have to get the ball into a dangerous spot, make the defense make a play, and if you have guys in the right position, like you'll just score it. Like that's the great thing about the movement of that Owen had on this play, is that he just tucks in front of his guy. He doesn't really have to do a whole lot. Once he gets that step in front of the guy who's supposed to mark him, there's no chance of defending that. There's nothing you can do to stop it, because that header and the pace on the corner kick and the deflection it takes, like you
Yeah,
can't stop it. You just
I was gonna
can't, because
mention
you
that.
lost the positioning on the ground. Like, yeah, that's part of being strong, and part of strong in the air is being tall and being able to jump. But Owen won that on the ground with his footwork of getting in front of someone.
You're right. I think it was Tillman, if I'm not mistaken, who was trying to guard Owen. But I do want to kind of mention that the deflection that it went off of the LAFC defender. I think Mateja was the one that was kind of battling him there
Yeah.
in the air, but it does go off of an LAFC head, and it's literally half a second that you have to react. And Owen Wolff, the ball doesn't necessarily find him; it's kind of going in his path, but he also takes a step forward to meet the ball with his head. So that's instinctive finishing. I think that's another level from Owen Wolff, and I'm very curious to see just what kind of Owen we see in 2026. Right, this season it's been a tremendous rise from this guy, and just to think about what he can still develop to be is going to be very interesting, and also good for a lot of people that are looking at this project for the long run. You mentioned how important the homegrown contracts are, and those are definitely long run kind of deals. So Owen Wolff is one of the most exciting players coming out of MLS right now, one of the most exciting young American players. And it just baffles me, mate, that there's no communication with the U.S. men's national team. Owen took questions recently, and the media, Alex asked him, I was like, hey, he said, hey, has there been any communication from the U.S. men's national team? He said, nope, other than me saying hi to some of my buddies here and connecting with some old friends, no communication whatsoever. And I just think that is just weird for me. It's just kind of it's gotten nutty.
I think the U.S. automatically qualifying because we're hosts is actively hurting the
Mm,
setup of the future of the team.
I see what you're
I
saying.
think because we're just not playing that many matches. Like there's not a qualifying that we're having to go through. Like normally we would be having all these qualifiers going on and all these other matches and camps, and like there would be a chance for players who are just kind of hot to get added to camp. That's a thing that regularly happens when you have that kind of long drawn out process, and we don't have that. I think it also doesn't help that you know, I think Pochettino already has the idea of what his roster is in his head. Which it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like it's a good idea. It's good that your coach has a good idea of who your team's going to be and how he wants them to play. I do think that Owen is probably not going to get any kind of looks until after the World Cup, but I
Mm.
still think that's a little bit of a mistake on the US's part because he's kind of the exact player you need to try to make sure you grab. And when there's already been rumors about him signing for a different or joining up for a different national team, like you don't want to lose those guys, and
No.
especially a player who's like, you know, I'm not going to call Owen a late bloomer, but like he's getting into the age where you can see what he's going to be, and he's somebody that you can fit into every squad. He just can. And so that becomes like a big problem when you're trying to fill out a roster of just being able to plug guys in is really important. And he's somebody you can do that with.
Dude, no kidding. Hopefully everything turns out well or turns out okay with Owen Wolff. You'd think that maybe with his connection from his family, that would be something that, got him in there. And I know some people are kind of against that, right? But this is a guy that he's actually good on the pitch. This is somebody that you would want to have playing for your national team. But hey, we'll see what happens with Owen Wolff. He's still a very young player, and I'm sure he has everything to, kind of wait for him. It's definitely coming. But on the other side of the goal, you had the delivery from Zan Kolmanic, and this is a guy, Scott, that a lot of people have been asking, hey, where is Kolmanic? What happened to him? Why wasn't even he on the bench for the U.S. Open Cup final? Seeing how important he was in the semifinals, seeing how important he was kind of building up to the moment. People were asking, where is Zan Kolmanic? And there was rumors of him having some hamstring issues, but then it was later on confirmed. Literally, I think the last media availability is when it was finally confirmed on record. Coach Nico saying that he's been dealing with some hamstrings. Zan Kolmanic also post match says that he was coming back from like a minor setback. And so Alex, after the game, he asked him what it felt like to be, part of the winning gameplay, sending in the corner kick, because I don't think they gave him the assist because it had a deflection from LAFC. But this is what Komanic said. He says, quote, "It feels good, especially after I had a minor setback the last couple of weeks, my hamstring. We were working towards this week." So Jan Komanic, they're confirming what a lot of people were wondering, and Jan Komanic did not play the US Open Cup final because of problems with his hammy. But he's back, and he says it feels good, and he got a new haircut. He's got the buzz cut. Kolmanic can pull any look off at any given time. Kolmanic is that guy. But Scott,
100%.
your thoughts on Kolmanic? Number one, confirming that minor setback, why he was absent from the Open Cup final, and just number two, how important he is off of a corner kick.
Yeah, I was glad to hear that because I had also heard the rumors about there being some kind of like hamstring issue, and to me, Kolmanic is a almost unique player on the Austin FC team in that he provides such an obvious and clear weapon with his
Mm,
crossing and with his set pieces,
mm.
especially being left-footed, where you can have that balance because I don't think we really have another left-footed player who can provide that. And also like just in terms of providing attacking width on the left is so important for this team because of how great Bukhari is on the right, and teams have just decided to throw numbers at it because they know that they can't. Bukhari's the kind of player that even if you put two guys on him, he can still beat two guys, and you just have to defend him as a team, and that leaves a lot of space on the other side. And Coleman is somebody who can take advantage of that, and I like seeing him as a late game option, like we've seen in terms of being able to take set pieces, and and especially when Austin's trying to get a goal, they will a lot of times set up to where Cohen is just a crosser of it, to where they kind of clear out and just kind of like give him the left side to be able to provide the cross, and everybody loads up on the other side. Like these are important weapons in late games, especially in close games where the margins are really thin. Like he is a full on weapon in this league, and I want to see Austin utilize him more because I think he provides something that Austin needs and that we don't really have.
Solid, solid right there on Young Kolmanic. Honestly, if this guy can provide anything to anybody in this league, is those crosses with that left boot. So credit to him. I think also defensively he was doing really good, in that semifinal leading up to the final. I think he was very, very instrumental, important to this cup run. But well, now it's good to now that all those all the theories can be put to rest. The hamstring issues were true, and that's why he was absent, sorry, from the U.S. Open Cup final, Jan Kolmanic. But congrats to Owen Wolff on the game-winning goal. Congrats to Jan Kolmanic on yet another reason why you should have him on the pitch during these important moments. But it is difficult with who he has up against him, and that kind of leads into one of the next things that I wanted to talk about here, mate. It is the lineup breakdown and the reaction. But actually, before that, we heard from Jan Kolmanic post match. I want to kind of talk about this quote real quick from Brad Stuver. Cannot pass over this. This is Brad Stuver saying, quote, I don't care. We said we wanted playoffs. Playoffs was the goal. It's a 34-game season. We made the playoffs because of what we did all season. So that's another quote from the mix zone there. Brad Stuver kind of just hinting at the fact that the narrative that they backed into playoffs is just not true in the players' eyes, and also in Coach Nico's eyes, because he also had a quote very similar to this. But Scott, what do you think about Brad Stuver kind of not lashing out or anything, but kind of putting a rest to those conversations of, oh, you're only there because of what other teams did? What do you think about this quote?
I mean, he's right. Like that's kind of the thing, is that as much as we, I think some of it is also a fan thing of like you want to win to clinch the playoffs. Like that just feels better when you do that. And you build up enough points to where the other teams are chasing you, and it's not your fault that the other teams aren't able to catch you. Like Austin has put up enough points to be sixth. Just because nobody else could catch us, and just because of like the sequence of the games, like their games were after ours when we clinched, doesn't change that fact. I think it's just it's a weird narrative that is propagated by fans who just want to feel the like, oh, we won to clinch the playoffs, and it's dramatic and it's really positive, instead of just being like, okay, well, you know what, we generated enough points to make the playoffs, and other teams can't catch us because they're not getting the results they need. Like that is also just part of sports. Like we're not gonna like Vancouver's not gonna complain that LAFC lost to us and therefore they can't catch us, or they can't catch them to be able to like be the top seed in the West. Like that's not Vancouver's fault. That's LAFC's fault for not getting results.
That's actually true, mate. And I'm with Brad Stuver on that quote. I think what he said is pretty spot on. What Because of what they did all year long is the reason why they were able to fight for that number 6 seed. Of course, everybody wants to finish up and above of where they finished, but I think a lot of people at the beginning of the year in 2025 would take sixth place in the playoffs if they could. But
I mean,
we'll see.
just look at the other teams above us in the West right now. Like
You got
Vancouver,
Seattle, Leagues Cup
yeah,
champs.
yeah. Seattle's League Cups champs. You have San Diego's had a great season all year.
Mm-hmm.
LAFC, who has the best attacking duo in the league.
Correct.
Minnesota has, even after selling one of their best players, is still putting together really good results throughout the season. They're a very
They
well coached team.
and they also lost a guy in the semifinal.
Yeah, that too. And they're still cranking out results. And then you look at Vancouver, who nearly won CONCACAF Champions Cup, and now has everybody back. And Thomas Mueller's got added. They haven't. I think they're undefeated in their last 10. Like that's a team I don't want to play in the playoffs.
100%.
Like that,
100%.
I like to me like they're the best team in the West. And if you look at those 5 teams, like those are good. Those are 5 really good teams who I think are all contenders to win the conference. And Austin finishing sixth isn't like a slight to that. Like just because they're not as good as these conference contenders and with a team that made an Open Cup final run that is missing a couple guys out injured. Like I think
100%.
it's been a very successful season, and I think fans just want to feel that like. I think it's a fun thing about the cup competitions is that you only advance by winning, and because of that, like you get this like triumphal feeling every round.
Mm.
And in a long season like MLS has, you don't always get that way if you make the playoffs. Like sometimes you're just going to put up a bunch of points and other teams lose, and then you clinch, and that's okay.
Yep. The playoffs are a completely different animal. It's a completely different beast. I always say that. And you just gotta learn how to play this MLS game. If not, you're gonna be disappointed every single year. But sixth place for Austin FC, I think Scott, you put it pretty well there. Where you're saying, look at the teams above you, and then look at where Austin FC landed. And I think a lot of people should kind of see that as a little bit of an achievement. But of course, they're gonna look at the money. They're gonna say, look at the investment. But the reality is that a big chunk of that money went out against San Jose in one of the worst fields that this league has to offer. So that's also has to be, fabricated into the equation. But that's a whole nother conversation. So Brad Stewart there kind of just letting folks know. We heard a little bit from Zan Kolmanic, and then Coach Nico here. He says on the win, he said it was really important because it's not easy to recover from a week like the one that we had. And it's true. I mean, one day at work that goes bad, it can set you up for a bad week. And these guys had a terrible week. And of course, man, you got to be real. You lost the cup final. You lost against a team that you shouldn't have lost to. St. Louis had nothing to play for. Maybe because of that they played so freely, I guess, right? And it is very difficult to kind of bounce back from that. But I think with this LA win, with this LAFC win, Scott, it definitely puts a little bit of band-aid over those hits, over those cuts, over those bruises, over those scars, whatever you want to call them. And Austin can now look at the playoffs with a little bit of a different mindset. They can look at what's coming up next. Whatever happens against San Jose does not matter one bit. But giving your fans a good image of yourself before you leave them for the regular season, I think that was very important for Austin FC against LAFC. Any thoughts on that point?
I think that's a really good point. I think the other thing is that because of how long the US Open Cup runs, having to transition from Open Cup to playoffs is something that's going to be very difficult because it is such a high and a momentous occasion to try to come back to after losing that I'm kind of not surprised there were losses around there. Like that is kind of a thing that happens with most teams who make deep cup competitions or make deep cup runs. And so I was glad to see the win because I think it helps them refocus and move past that into like, okay, yes, Open Cup was a loss, or we made it to the final and we lost, but now we're on to the next phase. And beating LAFC, I think, really helps them get along with that.
100%, mate. Now, last guy that I will pull up on screen for his quote, and I thought this was a good one. Guilherme Biru, he says, quote, he's very happy. Sorry, quote, I'm very happy. This is my second year here, and it is the first time we are qualifying, which is a merit of the entire team that worked very hard this season. And then after Alex asked him about that little dribble, flick over the guy that he had in the first half, and Biru was like, look, guys, you see a very defensive player. I won't let it exceed anything more than that. Kind of saying like, yes, I am very defensive, but I am Brazilian as well. Do not forget that that's something that I can pull off of. But he said he's not gonna exceed stuff like that. So I love Bito. And one thing that I thought was very interesting, Scott, is this is his second year here, and it's his first time in the playoffs. So a guy like Guilherme Bito, how great he's been for Austin FC, he's never even sniffed the playoffs in his time with Austin. So that's another reason for folks to kind of get excited and get kind of behind this team when it comes to playoffs that are around the corner is that there's guys that are loved by everybody that have never even sniffed this part of the competition yet. So that's going to be a big boost for him. I mean, this has been a great season for him. He's had an all-star. He's had goals for Austin FC. There's been a lot of big key moments for him on both sides of the pitch. And now going into playoffs, I thought that was something to kind of, focus on just, slightly. I don't know. I thought Biru saying that, him being very happy that second season, first time in the playoffs. I'm going to be very interested to see how he handles his first time in this new part of town. So big ups to Biru, and it is what it is. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the lineup, mate, the formation we have here on screen. The way that Austin FC decided to go out. Coach Nico sent out a 3-4-3, or you can call it the famous back five. I've been a huge advocate for it. I've been saying that it was a mistake to change from it in the U.S. Open Cup final against Nashville, but we see it today against LAFC, which did not have Sun. They did not have Buanga, but they themselves rolled out with a real back five in the back right there. So to me, Scott, just like I mentioned earlier, it was a battle of two teams that did not want to make that first mistake. They were waiting for the mistake. Very little creation, waiting for a set piece, for a corner kick, but kind of just focusing on this back five, Scott. They had Guilherme Biru, Brandon Heinzike, and Mateja Djordjevic as the back three, those three center backs, with support from Mikel Dessler and John Gallagher. So I wanted to ask you, mate, how did you see this lineup in the back? What did you think about it? You had Ilie and Dani Pereira there with little defensive duties, sure, but the main backbone, those people in the back, those guys in the back, the anchors, John, Biru, Heinzike, Mateja, and Dessler. How did you see this choice to go with a back five?
I really like this structure for Austin. I think it does a very good job of providing defensive balance in terms of having the three center backs with Danny and Ilie. And also, it hides one of Austin's biggest weaknesses. And one of Austin's biggest weaknesses is that we don't have a strong left winger to play on the opposite of Bukhari. And I think that using Owen there is really just a way to try to get him the ball and get him the ball in space. And one of the things that I like about this lineup and Gallagher starting is that Gallagher gets the freedom to run forward.
Yeah.
And he inherently unbalances the other defense to where the defense has to think. And as soon as you start forcing defenses to think, they're in trouble. And so I like that it adds like a little bit more of a wrinkle. I feel like it plays more like a back four because of how much freedom John Gallagher gets going forward. But in the sense of like a FIFA formation, like the 3-4-3 can make sense for it. I'm not sure it was a mistake to not play it against Nashville. I know this has probably been talked about ad nauseum because I think just with how Nashville's style of play works, I think having more people forward helps. And help or at least help then, because I thought Austin really outplayed Nashville. And I do like this back five structure as Austin moves forward and plays teams that are probably going to want to have more of the ball and attack. I think it just provides more cover and gives Owen more freedom to move forward and stay up as an attacking midfielder, which is really the most important part of the formation, is how to get your best players in their best position.
And of course, just like you mentioned earlier, mate, one of the weaknesses that this team has, and it is very true, the lack of a substitution on that left side, and we saw today. Well, I'm sorry, we saw Sunday what Austin FC was like without Mirto Uzuni, and it's crazy, mate, because I know a lot of folks maybe didn't have the time to keep up with Albania's game versus Serbia. It was kind of early. Folks were at work. You know what I'm saying? But if you didn't watch the game, Mirto Usuni was up and down the field. There was a bunch of media outlets from Albania that were saying that the only thing that he needed to do that game was to play goalie, because he played every single position that day. So, it's something that we've seen him do for Austin FC. If he doesn't provide a goal or a hockey assist or the assist itself, he's very involved with the defensive play. He's very involved with pressing. He's very involved with just kind of running around and kind of just getting in guys' faces, trying to win the ball back. But I couldn't help but think, Scott, in the game against LAFC, boy, would I love to have Mirto Usuni for this game, and or at least Diego Rubio. I think we felt also the emptiness of Rubio. I know a lot of folks maybe don't really look at him for many minutes anymore, or anything like that, or anything kind of that will change the match. because maybe because of his veteran status now or whatnot. But we really felt the coldness of not having Uzuni, of not having a guy like Rubio. And I think you hit it spot on that's a weakness of Austin FC, that they need more attack on that left side. And Owen has done a job on the left. He's done a job. Coach Nico didn't really want to say where he's going to use him for the playoffs, either on the left or centrally, because more guys are coming back from this LAFC game that weren't here for that, right? So I, it's just it's very difficult when you don't have a guy like Mirto, when you expect him to be on your team. These international duty games suck, but now I hope folks get to see what kind of the importance of having a guy like Mirto up there. But how did you see him not being in this game for Austin? And how much did you rate his like absence of? How much did it kind of hurt the Austin FC chances?
So first, international breaks. I hate that there's an international break 2 weeks before the end of the regular season, as much as I hate the international break 3 weeks into the European season. It's absolutely terrible. It breaks up the flow. It, especially in MLS's case, really hurts those teams in ways that I think hurts them going to the playoffs and is really antagonistic. The thing about Uzuni that I like the most is that he has gravity to him, which is that the idea that he draws defenders, he focuses defenses on him. Like, that's, you talk about hockey assists. Like, one of the reasons that hockey assist gets created is because the defense collapses onto one person so much. And that's something that he forces. He makes really good runs. His movement's really good. He's always trying to look in behind. I think if Austin's backline especially did more to look for him over the top, I think we would see that more. I think that's something that Nico needs to stress more when he's building up his team. And also, I think he just gets more involved in like the build up play in the offense. If you look at CJ Fodry, who's playing up top at 9, according to FBref, like, he had the fewest touches of any starter for the Austin team. And so, yeah, typically the striker has fewer touches than everybody else, but only getting 15 touches in 70 minutes, like, that's just not getting that player involved enough. And I think that's something that Uzuni knows how to do in terms of his movement and dropping back that CJ can't or doesn't at this time. And I think that's something that Austin was kind of missing, in the sense of going back to what I was talking about making a defense think. Like, if Gallagher's moving up and attacking the defense, we need Uzuni, and Uzuni comes back. Like, you force their backline into making some kind of weird decisions in terms of where they're supposed to be playing and how they're supposed to be aligned. And that's something that Austin misses when we don't have that.
Definitely, mate. He was missed in my department, I must say. But hey, he will be back soon. What a huge boost to his morale as well as a Albanian, because of the huge win that they had versus Serbia. I mean, I don't know if you saw any of the celebration videos. We tried to share some on the WAATV Instagram story, but Usuni was going absolutely crazy in the locker room celebrating that Albanian win. And I saw the coach try to give like a little speech in. Usuni kind of didn't really let him. He kind of just started lifting him or whatnot. I thought it was so funny, but I mean, I can only imagine what they were feeling, what they were going through. And they're literally, I think, if I'm not mistaken, they're in a playoff position to go to the World Cup. So best of luck to them. I hope Albania makes it to the World Cup. I mean, imagine having another form of representation for Austin FC at the World Cup. That'll be amazing. That'll be dope. That'll be very exciting. And wishing all the Albanian people the best in their journey towards the World Cup. But one other thing that I wanted to kind of mention, Scott, real quick on this back five is the fact that they got the clean sheet. I think that's very important to mention, because you didn't have Svatok, you didn't have Cascante, but Mateja has been a guy that has been able to kind of step up when called upon, and he's been able to do the job when Coach Nico has kind of asked him to. I think Mateja, slowly, he's going to learn a little bit more of the codes, a little bit more of the little sneaky stuff going on. But Mateja, so far, he's been good for Austin FC, and I think he was good against this LAFC side. There was a little bit of a shaky moment where he lost the ball. I think it was David Martinez that kind of picked his pocket there, but Brendan Hines like comes in clutch or whatnot. But other than that, he was solid. I don't know what you think about him.
Same. I think he's a really solid player, and I think using him in a back three makes a lot of sense, because until you get him fully comfortable in the league and playing, like, a back three just gives him an extra level of protection there that playing in a back two just doesn't. I think Case in point of what you're talking about of like having a hindsight to be able to help and save you, like that's not something that you can do if you're only playing with
True.
with one other partner
True.
necessarily. I think he's going to be a really good player moving forward for us, and I think he does like provide something that we don't always have, and also just center back depth is something you always need, especially if you're going to play with three of them. I like Biru as a center back a little bit more than a left back because I think that
Mm.
I think his size and his ability on the ball and also being left footed, like that position requires all of those things. And it's actually a pretty rare combination to find. And so it really does give us an advantage when you're trying to play out of the back to have somebody who's already left footed who can play center back and still, defend the box and still defend players. Like I would like to see more of that going forward as opposed to like him at left back. And that's just
Not
my
bad.
personal thoughts on just how to play him.
Not a bad take, Mike. Not a bad take. And real quick, I wanted to mention the bench for Austin FC that was used. You had Zan Kolmanic come in at the 70th. You had Hader Obrian come in at the 70th as well as a double sub there. You have Niko Dubersarski with Robert Taylor at the 77th minute, and then Savovic at the 85th. But real quick, mate, I wanted to ask you something. If is the Austin FC bench producing enough for you in games? You think that the Austin FC bench is kind of coming in clutch if with moments for Austin FC? Because but before you give your answer, maybe your answer is going to kind of help kind of shape mine moving forward. But I don't think that Austin FC's bench has been that supportive of the starting 11. If it's not CJ that's kind of giving the goals, I guess Kolmanic with the assists that he can kind of give whenever we see him take those crosses or whipping it in from top of the box. If it's not those two guys, I mean, we know it's not Taylor. We know it's not Obrian. Rubio every now and then does give you a little bit of magic. We saw the latest version against Seattle. But I think Austin FC has a little bit of a problem with their bench. I don't think that they're getting enough goals from their bench. I don't know what you think about that.
I mean, I don't think Austin's getting enough goals from anywhere except
That's true.
for Owen, maybe. And at the
What?
same time, like I think CJ Footer is the first time we've ever really had anybody off the bench who's really like changed multiple games like
Mm-hmm.
that. Ultimately, I think the problem with the bench is uh, some players who are a little bit past it and kind of don't really have it anymore, and we're just kind of trying to get out like 1 or 2 more years. O'Brien was latest score 2 years ago, but this year I don't think he has a goal this year if I remember correctly.
No,
I like to
none.
think I do. Robert Taylor has one that was a not meaningless goal, but at the end of a match against DC that we already had in hand. In terms of them really impacting games, we haven't seen that. And that really is ultimately like Austin's biggest problem is that once we get past the first like 12 or 13 guys, like the talent level drops off really quickly. We've seen Dupersarski come in and he can do a job in midfield, spelling Ilya. Savovic can kind of do the same thing, but when we start looking in the wings and up front, like besides CJ, like we just don't have anybody who's been able to impact a game or change it or turn it around, and that's going to be a limitation on this team and this roster and going through the playoffs.
100%. That's something that I just kept thinking about. I was like, man, I don't know. It's just because I just remember growing up and watching like some NBA finals. I clearly remember there being like a stat from points from the bench, and the bench is almost, well, I'm not going to say just as, but it is a very important part of your match. It is the guys that are going to be brought on to either secure the match for you or change the game for you, right? And I just don't think we've had that much protagonism from the bench as of late. If it's just like I said, if it's not Kolmanic, if it's not CJ, I don't see Savovic changing a game for you. I don't see Dubersarski changing a game for you. We haven't seen Robert Taylor do that. We haven't seen Hader do that. And although this game against LAFC, I mentioned in the Spanish podcast that Hader did come on with more energy than usual. I think he had better, presses. I think he did better this game that he has in many chances that he's gotten for Austin FC. But even then, he still didn't score a goal. He still didn't, get an assist. But I did give him credit for some other things that he did. I wish that Austin FC had a more producing bench or kind of just that gave him a little bit more support at the end of the day. But that's all that I
Yeah,
had on that.
yeah. I was looking up. I think we've had 15 different players score, which is kind of like in line for the last couple of seasons of how many we've had. But the problem is we have so many who just have one. Svatak has one, Gallagher has one, Pereira has
Yeah,
one. Like, and that's kind of the thing. Like when you look into like multiple goal scorers, we only have six. And so it just goes to show that like this team just isn't scoring enough goals and isn't great enough offense. And
100%.
some of that is, tactical decisions by the coach. And some of it is also that like when you look at this roster, like there's not a whole lot of guys who really, if you're, game planning against us, that really scare you.
100%, mate. I hate to say it, 100%. But now I want to move into one of the kind of more important parts of the pod, of course, with decision day around the corner, the playoffs being right after that, Austin FC qualifying for round one. The theories are starting to fly. The conspiracy theories are, starting to let loose. And I want to talk a little bit about the playoff opponent probabilities for Austin FC. Now, these are from playoff status. I think they just rounded up, but their math is just slightly over 100. It's 101. So I think that they just rounded up or something. Maybe LAFC's is really 45%. But there's three teams that obviously stick out. The first one, and we'll talk about this one first, Scott, is Minnesota. Now they come in at a whopping 27%, or it could be 26%. But this is a team that, number one, in the Open Cup, you defeated them, you beat them at home in front of their people at the last minute, at the last second. Shout out to CJ Fodre. But in the league, also, Scott, they came to Q2 Stadium and they kind of did you dirty. 3-0. Pereira had a show, not ours, theirs. And they're not the easiest side to really think about. But like we mentioned earlier, they sold a player to Villarreal in La Liga, and in the semifinal of the US Open Cup, they also lost a very important player themselves. So I want to ask you, mate, what you think about this Minnesota side? What's your confidence level on the Minnesota team as of right now?
I think Minnesota is the only team in the top five I would want to play in the best of three playoff round, to be honest.
Mm,
Just in terms of like their overall talent level and also just Austin's results against them. Like this is a team we have gone to the home field and beaten them even when they were trying their hardest. And ultimately, like in the playoffs, you're gonna have to do that at least once and the best of three in the first round. They're also playing Galaxy at the end. Galaxy are bad. They're spoon contenders. They've been bad all season. And so I think Minnesota's currently in fourth. And, I would expect them to get a result there. So I would not be surprised at all to see them jump another team and end up in third.
hmm. Okay. Now, my take on Minnesota is I think they're the ones that you want to play in the best of three. They're the ones that I identified saying, hey, team wise, I want them. I want to play them. I'm not really interested on going back to Minneapolis as the city. It was an interesting place. It was it's a whole other story. But I really would fancy Austin FC's chances at Allianz Field. They already they already conquered the atmosphere. They conquered that stadium. And I think it'll be a confidence boost for the players knowing, like, hey, we were already here in a high stakes moment, the highest stakes, the biggest kind of stage that we could have been on in this stadium wise. And they left with the W. So I think that'll be a little bit of a confidence boost for them. And then coming to Q2 Stadium, one game at Q2, 90 minutes at Q2 are very, very, very long. And for a playoff setting, for a playoff atmosphere, I expect it to be like that day at the U.S. Open Cup final. But I would like to see Minnesota in a best of three.
Same. Also, Wonderwall sucks.
Yeah, I was not impressed. But actually, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really get most of it because I had to run down to the mix zone to wait for these guys to talk to them. But I went with the hope of hearing it, and now I hear multiple people saying that it's overrated. So I'm not mad at it.
It's a bad song. We shouldn't be like building club culture around it. It's just bad.
Now, the next one, Scott, the next probability here is San Diego FC. They come in on a pretty strong 30%, I must say. Now, the season they're having. But one thing you can say is that, hey, well, Austin FC already beat them once this season. It was early in the season, but they got the W against San Diego at 30%. Chucky Lozano's team. How do you feel about this matchup, Scott?
I don't feel great about this one, mostly because I think they're a good home team, which really matters when you're trying to play them play them away. And also, like, they have a lot of really good high end talent. Anders Dreyer is an
Mm,
MVP candidate. If it wasn't for Messi, I think he's a very obvious MVP candidate winner. Like you said, like Chucky Lozano's there, like Luca De La Torre. Like, they have a lot of really good players, and they've had a really great season. And at the same time, the last time an expansion team had a really great regular season, they got bounced from the first round of the playoffs by an underdog. So, it's MLS, there's chaos, it's great.
yep. There is a lot of chaos. There's a lot of parity in this league, and that's what I always say. I always say, look, y'all, don't compare MLS to the rest of the world because you're going to end up disappointed 10 out of 10 times, honestly. It is not the same as La Liga. It is not the same as the Premier League. It is not the same as anywhere in the world. It's very unique. Yeah, I don't say that I'm not saying it's unique in a beautiful way. It pisses me off a lot of the times. Don't think that I'm in love with this league. But Austin FC is a team that I follow very, very, very closely. So the playoffs are going to be interesting. Anybody can make it to the finals from the Western Conference. I always say that anybody that makes it to the playoffs can win the Western Conference and make it to the MLS Cup final. I mean, from the Eastern Conference last year, and Coach Nico even talked about their kind of run to the final. New York Red Bulls last year they came in seventh and they went to the MLS Cup final. They lost against a great Galaxy side, but look what that great Galaxy side looked like in 2025. They were wooden spoon contenders. It is so weird. It is so difficult, and it's hard to navigate it. So I think that's why Coach Nico has to be valued a little bit from people that kind of discard him. I think he is valuable in that aspect that he knows what this league is like.
Oh, absolutely. And also, like, this is at least the second most successful Austin FC season. Like, we made it to an Open Cup final, we
Correct.
made the playoffs. Like, I understand that's a low bar, but like, Nico's done a good job this year. Like, I think he's definitely, I think for a lot of us who, doubted him and doubted the hire, like, no, he's put up good results here. Like, when you look at the end of the season where we are now, like, he's definitely, I think there's some very knee-jerk reaction people who think he should be fired, and I don't agree with that at this time because I think he's put up enough good results. And knowing the league does matter. The other thing I want to mention on this is that San Diego has to go to Portland,
Mm-hmm.
which one is a tough place to play as somebody who's been there, and two, Portland has things to play for. They still have not gotten themselves necessarily out of the play-in game yet, and so they need to try to get at least a point. And so that's going to make them fight a little bit harder than I think
Oof.
a Galaxy team that is playing a lost season that they're probably ready to be over or to um, uh, just in terms of like their own effort.
No, totally, man. That's why it's decision day. That's why it's going to be a lot of fun. And I mean, what just think about the sense of relief that no matter what happens on Austin FC's decision day, it doesn't affect you at all, like at all. There's been other ones where Austin FC's not playing for anything, but at least this one, like you could lose by a huge margin. It's crazy to have that feeling where it doesn't affect anything. Like you're locked in to sixth. All you're really waiting on is who you're going to play against. And there's one more teammate that we're going to talk about here in the probabilities is LAFC. They come in and on a 44, maybe 43%. LAFC is, I'm sorry, I think I got that. I think it was 46 or 44. I had two screenshots that,
44.
okay, 44. Okay, perfect. They come in on a 44%. Now, I know a lot of fans are thinking, oh well, Austin just beat them at home. Bring them on. The problem with that is they had two guys that weren't there that are goal scoring machines. We're talking about Denny Boanga and we're talking about Hyo-Min Son. Now, maybe you haven't heard of Denny Boanga as much, but I'm sure you know of a guy named Hyo-Min Son. He's doing exactly what a lot of people thought he was going to do in MLS. He's been a great ambassador for the league, but oh my God, is he terrorizing MLS so far? So I want to get your thoughts on this LAFC percentage, 44%. Where are you at playing against LAFC?
So I think a lot of that percentage is that they're currently in third and just kind of like the status quo of it makes sense. It's crazy that Son is already their second leading scorer,
Tough.
considering he's only played in 9 matches for them. He has 8 goals. Bouanga has 24.
Tough.
Yeah, I don't. I legitimately think LAFC is probably second favorite to win the West behind Vancouver for me.
Mm.
I don't really want to play them in playoffs, especially in a over 3 game series. I would much rather just have a one shot at trying to beat them, because Bouanga and Son have been such a dominant attacking pair. I was a little disappointed that we didn't get to see him at Q2. That would have been a really cool moment. I know there were a lot of his fans and Tottenham fans around the stadium on
There was a
Sunday.
lot. There was a lot
Yeah,
of them.
yeah, there's a lot, and so having him come and visit for the playoffs would be a really cool moment. And at the same time, like, this is why you play the games. Austin ended up being 6-0-1 against teams from California this year, not including
Yeah.
the US Open Cup win.
Yeah.
And so, maybe there's just a thing that like Austin just conquers California this year.
Whew, I would love it. I would love to see that, and just just so everybody can see, we have the standings here. Of course, you have San Diego, LAFC, and Minnesota right there fighting for those spots. Those are your opponents. That's who you're waiting for. So be on the lookout. We will be posting it sorry, as soon as it's made official, as soon as it is confirmed. Of course, it'll all be kind of after that decision day weekend. So, but be on the lookout. Don't forget about the LV watch party. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Somewhere you can kind of be in the same kind of room of energy with other folks. Look at that: San Diego 60, LAFC 59, Minnesota 58. So it's gonna be an interesting decision day for Austin FC fans, for all the right reasons, for things that you really don't even have to worry about much, just who you're gonna play versus who you're gonna play against. But hey, it is what it is. So I guess you want Minnesota, Scott? Is that the one that you're choosing?
Yeah, if I get to choose, I'm choosing Minnesota.
I'm with you, mate. I'm with you. But I told the guys, I was like, if it's about travel, I'd love to go to San Diego because we'd like to be there at least once. Maybe the game 3. If there's a game 3, there most likely will be a game 3. But I think I would like to go to a game 3 kind of scenario. I mean, you would think that the home team takes game 1. You would think, right? You'd think that Austin FC would take a game 2 at home, must win 100%. And then game 3, that's a final, baby. That's a final 100%. So Austin FC fans travel well. You know that, Scott. I know that. I think they will make themselves heard in every single one of those stadiums. LAFC is a tough stadium to play. San Diego is a tough place to play. But in Minnesota, you can take over 100% if you're Austin FC. Again, because they did in the U.S. Open Cup final. They did, mate. But um, you want to add something, Scott?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, like, as much as I don't love the best of three, because the entire point of it is that to try to like minimize upsets instead of just having like a 1 game playoff or having a like home and home like you see in a lot of other knockouts. One of the things I enjoy is that every year there's always a stupid upset, and I'm really hoping that Austin might be part of that in terms of taking out LAFC or a San Diego, somebody who would clearly be underdogs against. That would just be really fun. It goes back to they instituted it the first time in 2023, and immediately Sporting KC, who won the play-in game, beat cross-state rivals and Western Conference champions or regular season champions St. Louis in the first round, and we all just got to sit and laugh. And that's one of the beauties of the MLS playoff system, is being able to laugh at how the stupid results happen, and how no matter what this league does to try to make them not happen, they keep happening.
100%. 100%. It happens all the time. There's upsets everywhere. And on the Spanish part, they were saying that Austin could be one of those dark horses, one of those kind of, those sleepers that a lot of people miss. And we'll see. We'll see if they benefit from that narrative or whatnot. But I wanted to throw into the pod that we had a youngster from the academy, Nico Aristizabal, get a last-minute call up to the Puerto Rican men's national team. They had a friendly today against Argentina, the big Argentina side. You had McAllister in there, Leo Messi in there, everything. I mean, the whole shebang when we're talking about Argentina. Why are they playing versus Puerto Rico? I have no idea. If they wanted a sparring session, they could have, played a local high school team or something. But they give them 6-0. 6-0 is the final score between Argentina and Puerto Rico. Now, our guy, Nico, he went because there was an injury in camp, so he did not see any minutes, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't think he got scored on against, but he's 17 years old, academy player for Austin FC. He's literally on the same roster as a match versus, as he's on the same roster as players like Leo Messi. I mean, that's good for him. It's good exposure for the academy, and just a very nutty situation today. Thoughts on that,
Also,
Scott?
just like a great life experience. Like you just have to be happy for him. Of like, you have this whirlwind thing, and you show up, and you're warming up, and you look across the field, and Lionel Messi's there. Like that's got to be a surreal moment for a 17-year-old.
100%. And he was also part of the All Stars. So this guy, he's not a stranger to the limelight, I must say. But I mean, he's a youngster. He's up and coming. And just what a past 24 hours for him. Just very interesting. I mean, just imagine getting a call. Hey, you got to get on a plane. You're gonna be in this game versus Leo Messi. Sure, okay, boom. I mean, what a life. What a life for these guys. Must be nice. Must be nice. But hey, credit to him. Credit to all the young lads working hard at the academy. Their season is ongoing. You can always check them out at Palmer Field right there at the St. Davis Performance Center. See if you can find their schedule somewhere online. And you can check out the games of the 15s, the 16s, the 18s. A lot of fun there. You can maybe catch some ex Austin FC players around there. Sometimes they're there, sometimes they aren't, but a lot of really fun stuff that you can check out from the youngster point of view, seeing what the club is kind of working with, at a very young level, making their way up. But a lot of good results for the age group so far for Austin FC and the academy point of view. And also FCito being out of the season, it sucks. No more Friday night games. They're not in the postseason. Difficult. But you have guys like Adrian Gonzalez still using those call ups to the first team. And it's good to know that you can still use them. I thought that was very cool that the coach trusts a guy like Adrian Gonzalez. And also, Irvin Torres was not here. So he was out with the USU 19s. So you would think that maybe Irvin would have gotten that call up, but instead it goes to Adrian Gonzalez. That was his second call up, Scott. So he still has two more. But we can cap it there on the Austin talk. But that should be it for today's episode, mate. Is there anything that you wanted to add that maybe we missed, or any kind of point that you wanted to get out there?
No, I think we pretty much covered everything. Just it's been a very good season. I'm really looking forward to the playoffs, and hopefully a bunch of people come out to the watch party on Saturday for decision day, and we get to watch all the matches and hopefully have some craziness go on.
100%. I think this season has been a roller coaster of emotions because of the expectations that were kind of set in as the season was going. I think expectations are nowhere near where they were at the beginning of the season for Austin FC fans. New coach, boatload of investment with no chemistry, new system, new everything, right? Just because you invest money doesn't mean that you're going to be great. I think Uzuni one time said that well to MLS Season Pass. He said, hey, anywhere in the world where you invest, you don't get instant results. You don't get an instant return. So he's banking on a big second season. So 2026 should be Usuni's year. We've seen that historically with his other clubs, Granada. But I think this season has been a good season. I won't say great, but it has been a good season because of what you were able to do without your DP Brandon Vasquez. You were on a very rotated squad sometimes. Some squads where you looked at on paper and you were like, man, really wish that BV9 was here, right? But even through all that, you made it to a cup final. Unfortunately, you lost it. You've made it to the sixth seed in the playoffs, and I really like what you said earlier, Scott. All you got to do is just look up and look at the teams ahead of Austin. Great side Seattle, tough side Minnesota. It LAFC side, we don't have to say anything about them. Vancouver tore apart Liga MX sides. And then San Diego, everybody's been seeing their name in all the headlines this season, what they've been doing this year. But Giants are meant to fall. And Austin FC can be one of those teams that they can knock somebody out. And if they have a deep run into the playoffs, this can turn a season from good to great. Because if you get to the final, I mean, with the experience that you have now from the US Open Cup final, I think this is a different Austin FC side. Mentally, I think they're more united than ever. So I'll say good, not great. At the end of the season, we're here with decision day literally around the corner. I would say good, not great of a season, but I'm happy with what they did. The objective was playoffs, right, Scott? The objective was playoffs. That's what people demanded. That's what the sign was. That's what the Rodo truck went out for.
Yeah, that's what
Those are
that's
what
what
the
Roto
planes went out
said.
for.
Roto said the playoffs is the goal. Like you have to make the playoffs every year. That is an expectation that
And we
he
held them
himself
accountable.
set
100%.
every year.
We
So yeah.
held them accountable. And now, you folks got the taste of that final at home, and it's hard for me to just skip over that because, of course, cup finals at home, you need to win them. But this is a Nashville side that knew what they were doing. We saw how they played the game, how dirty they played the game, but in legal means. It's crazy to say that, but Nashville literally CONCACAF'd us 100%. That's what they did to Austin FC, and like I said, if this team were to do a good cup, have a deep cup run, maybe get to the final, maybe get to the Western Conference final, and then go to the MLS Cup final, it would have turned a good season to a great season. I don't know.
No, 100%. I think that's the important thing to learn from the U.S. Open Cup run is that this team can win a one game final style win or go home setup. They can go on the road and beat teams that are favored over them. Like we've seen a lot of factors here that you know can give us some confidence going forward in the playoffs. Much more so as long as we forget that first half against El Paso.
Yes, yes, that was the worst. But even then, they got through that. But we can end it here, mate. I think we talked about everything we could. I mean, the match against LAFC, it didn't give us a lot to really dissect, not much to really talk about. It was one of those games where you had to just bunker down and kind of just expect for that one chance like they had with Owen Wolff at the back post. We covered that. But no, excited for decision day, excited for for the last match day vibes of the regular season before the real deal gets here, the playoffs, what everybody has been waiting for a long time. Second time in club history making it to the playoffs. It's something to be excited about, not to have a poor mentality or whatnot, but you've only been here twice out of 5 years. You better be excited about being in the playoffs as the number 6 seed. And again, I say, I really like what you said about just looking up and seeing who's up there. So, like I mentioned earlier, Giants are meant to fall. So we'll see what Austin FC does. And the playoffs decision day, best of luck to these guys because they're going to need it. Tough, tough, tough scene in the West, but I think they have the capability to win one and steal another if they can. That game in Minnesota, it was a steal. I think they can perform another one of those. I think they could pull off another one of those kind of games, and we'll see what happens, mate. But thank you for being here, Scott. Appreciate you for everything that you do with those previews. And folks, keep on checking them out on the Russian TV Substack. Make sure to keep on interacting with those articles and let us know what you think. What would you like to hear more of? But have a good night, everybody. Have a good day, Scott. Be safe, mate.
You too, man. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you.